All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my podcast, the CannCon show. I don't even know what we call these off the schedule interviews, but excited to bring to you a great interview tonight. Very much looking forward to this and looking forward to doing a Wednesday night show. Haven't done a Wednesday night show in a very, very long time. So welcome everybody that's coming in. Before we get into our interview and bring on my guest, I do real quick want to do some housework here and talk about one of my sponsors. And guys, most of you guys know that I am a big fan of precious metals. I've been talking about silver forever, back when it was around $20 an ounce. But whether you lean silver, gold, or both, the issue right now is the purchasing power, and that is the part that people always seem to miss. Everything costs more: groceries, utilities, insurance, and that same retirement money, well, it just doesn't stretch like people think it does. A lot of retirement accounts are still tied completely to paper assets, stocks, bonds, dollars, and that's fine until the purchasing power keeps getting chipped away year after year after year. They call it inflation. That was a horrible impersonation. Then people realize they're more exposed than they thought. And that's why some people look at gold and silver retirement accounts, not to trade, not to speculate, but just to diversify a portion and reduce that risk. So if you want to understand how gold and silver IRAs actually work, the rules, the structure, the what you can and can't do, there's a company called Augusta Precious Metals that focuses on education first. No hype, no pressure. This stays inside of your IRA or 401k, no taxes, no penalties. You're not moving everything. You're just learning how this all works. And if you want to dig into it, click the link in the description down below or text CannCon, CANNCON, to 35052 to get your free gold and silver IRA guide. Again, that's CannCon to 35052. Get informed first and then decide what makes sense for you. All right. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a little over a year that we've been in the second or third Trump administration. And a lot went on during the previous administration, and a lot went down with our military, especially with the vaccine mandates, something that was just thrust upon our entire nation, and just absolutely disheartening to see, you know, how this whole thing unfolded and how quickly we were to give up so many of our liberties and so many of our freedoms. And so tonight, joining me, I've got a gentleman that exemplifies what it means to stand up for what you believe in. And I'd like to welcome to the show Captain John Frankman. John, how are you doing, sir?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Brian. Appreciate it.
I am excited to have you on the show. We can throw this out right off the rip. You are currently, and we'll talk about this a couple times, but you're currently running for Congress in Florida's 1st district.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. Matt Gaetz' old seat.
Very cool. Very cool. Little small place it's around Destin, isn't it?
Yeah. So I live in Destin. This district is the furthest northwest district in Florida. So it goes from Pensacola to Freeport. So it covers 3.5 counties out here.
Oh, that's very cool. So you've got the Blue Angels up there. Blue Angels up there.
Yeah, Blue Angels, 7th Special Forces Group. It's the most veteran densely populated district in the country. We have more veterans than anywhere else in any congressional district and 5 major military bases. So really love the area. Super conservative, super Christian, just awesome place.
I got to ask, did you see the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds flyover, the joint flyover?
I didn't watch that. I saw it show up on my news, on my feed, but was not out there in Pensacola, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. I saw the formation that they flew. It was really cool to watch that. And you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember when COVID kicked off and they did that with the Blue Angels? They did this flying across the country thing.
No, I don't remember that. So when COVID kicked off, I was still in the Special Forces qualification course. I was actually at military freefall course in Yuma, Arizona. So I was much more worried about dying when jumping out of a plane at 14,000 feet at nighttime with oxygen and equipment. So that was definitely more my concern then.
Yeah, that's a little scarier.
More pressing, yeah.
Yeah, they did this crazy thing where the Blue Angels did this route all across the United States and just flew from base to base to base, and it was supposed to like raise morale and all this stuff, and it was kind of stupid if you ask me. But so, oh, go ahead. You want to?
Oh, we did a lot of stupid things during COVID, so that's definitely not the top of the list. Definitely not.
Yeah.
The top of the list.
So we'll definitely get into all that. I do want to, go back and talk about, how you came about joining the military, maybe get some background on you prior to the military. If you want to go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I was born in Los Angeles, grew up in the DC metro area. Parents split up, and my stepdad was in the military. My dad, he did 20 plus years as a reserve police officer. So very much interested in service-oriented jobs, period. And by the time I was in high school, I knew I want to go in the military. Wasn't exactly sure. Looked at different academies, ended up doing ROTC at Wheaton College. So I graduated and commissioned there in 2011. But I had a kind of weird route where when I commissioned, I am also a convert to the Catholic faith and thought God was calling me to the priesthood. So my first 4 years as a commissioned officer were spent in seminary studying to be a Catholic priest with the intent of being an Army chaplain. But yeah, discerned out of that and was like, all right, send me to combat arms.
You kind of went the opposite.
A lot of people say that when they look at infantry and special forces and then seminary and priesthood. But as far as Catholics go, after priests and religious, the most saints come from actually military service members. And it's in no way, shape, or form incompatible with being a Christian, with being a Catholic. And you still have that same kind of mission, purpose, drive, desire. And depending on the unit you're at, you do have somewhat of a fraternity, given kind of, when there's more guys around. But both are amazing, and both have really helped shape and form me into the person who I am today, and given me experiences that I want to bring up to the Hill.
So let's unpack that, because I told you before the show here, I was a Marine infantry combat veteran. Did 2 combat tours in Afghanistan. Both of them, were combat deployments. And we had a chaplain that was assigned to us out in the middle of nowhere. It was like 50 of us up on a hill, and we would have a chaplain that would come by, once a month or so, and do a service, do different services for different sects of Christianity. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I always kind of, and this is where I'm talking about going the opposite, kind of the opposite there. Like, how did you deal with that internally, going from, wanting to, go into seminary, become a priest, and then kind of going again, I don't want to say the opposite, but going into, an MOS where, more likely than not, you're going to be in a position where it's life or death for you or someone else.
Well, I mean, in seminary, it's great because you're really getting to know God, learn about theology, philosophy, and morality. And the church has a thing such as just war theory. And there's a big difference between thou shalt not murder and killing for a just war, or when you're and patriotism is a virtue for one's country. And I think the two desires were both growing within me at the same time, where I love God and wanted to serve him. So I considered serving him as a priest. I also love my country, loved all the leadership skills that would go into military service, giving completely of self. So I guess they never really felt like they'd mesh. I think the difficulty maybe was from seminary to the military, not having as much time to pray, to study, to really foster a spiritual life. So it was a lot more of the practical application of how do you live your faith out now in Ranger School, where you're not eating, sleeping, you're offering up a lot of sacrifices, but you can't necessarily get to mass every day.
Okay. I'm familiar with the just war theory, and, to be perfectly honest here, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was gung ho, right? Like, we got to go over there and kill all these people because they want to kill us and everything else. But, one of the things that I'd probably chalk up mainly to President Trump is changing my mindset on that drastically, like really big time, dramatic change. And, I look back now and I don't take away from what we did over there at the individual level, at the, the junior enlisted, the field grade officers, et cetera. But I look back at that and I'm like, was that war really what we were, kind of told that war was? And, again, I think, and I struggled with this a lot myself, in terms of my faith, and, asking God, I went over there with a pure heart. I went over there with good intentions. I went over there for the right reasons, but I'm finding out now that a lot of that was not exactly what we were told it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us look back at the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and wonder, why did we go? What was it for? Especially with the disastrous withdrawal that we saw in 2021, where we lost however many lives there, more lives to suicide, trillions of dollars. It just didn't make sense. The sacrifice was for what? And hearing about the WMDs, but not ever finding them. Yeah, we seem like we're very much lied to, and a lot of people's lives were absolutely ruined because of it.
Yeah. So, all right. So I don't want to turn this into a show about that just yet. It'll probably get to there at some point. But let's go back to your military service. So you go to Ranger School and you decide that you want to join Special Forces. You have to go through. If you want to walk us through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, when I got out of the seminary, I talked to the cadet command, and they rebranched me infantry. So I went through IBOLIC, then Ranger School. And after Ranger School, while in Ranger School, I actually met some Special Forces Green Berets. I thought they were just solid dudes. And you compare that to kind of the Ranger Battalion guys, the Ranger Bat kids who are there. So if you go to Ranger Regiment, if you are in a Ranger Regiment, you have to go to Ranger School in order to continue on and make E5 or Sergeant. And I just like the Special Forces mentality. Those guys were pretty chill. I was attracted to learning a language, working by, with, and through a culture. So went through the Special Forces qualification course. So starts with Special Forces assessment and selection. That's a 3-week selection process with land navigation, rock marches, runs, obstacle courses, IQ tests, personality tests, all the whole jazz. If they can test it, they did it. Pretty high attrition rate, and then went through the qualification course, which took a couple of years, and had Spanish training for about 6 months, and then went to the military free fall course. So just a really, really good time. And maybe for the listener, what might be interesting is like what separates the Special Forces Green Beret from every other special operation unit. And you have Special Operation Command. Within Special Operation Command, you have all the different branches have their own special operations component. The Army has Ranger Regiment. It also has Special Forces Green Berets. It also has SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Green Beret, we work by, with, and through a partner force. We do unconventional warfare. So Ranger Regiment, that is an elite infantry unit. They do infantry style tactics, missions, etc., raids, ambushes, just the basic stuff. Green Berets are unconventional. We practice overthrowing foreign governments using a guerrilla force, auxiliary, underground. We also work with countries in order to quell out different insurgencies and things of that nature. So and we have languages that we learn. We're regionally aligned. I was aligned to Central and South America. So just absolutely love the mission, love the people, still miss the guys in the area, but really solid training and fun.
Yeah, that's, when I was in the Marine Corps, I got out. I unfortunately, I was only able to do 4 years. My last deployment, I tore all the ligaments in my shoulder and had to have surgery and all this other stuff. I ended up, coming out of it okay. But so in the Marine Corps, you have to be an NCO, E4, Marine in the Marines, and NCO is an E4. And my ambition was to join, back then it was MARSOC. Now it's back to the Marine Raiders. And, I was really disheartened that I wasn't able to do that. It was always a 300 PFT or, top, my ASVAP was like 143, somewhere around there. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I could have done, in terms of MOSs, I could have done whatever I wanted. And I really wanted, when I got back, I really wanted to do that. And then of course I had to have that surgery, and the Marine Corps was going down from 212,000 down to like 189 or something. Ooh. And yeah. And I mean, I had perfect, my pause reps were not pause reps. My sit reps were fine.
Right. Yeah.
Everything was fine. I was 4.5 or above, like everything was perfect. And it was just that one thing that kept me out of it. And so I had a buddy, two buddies of mine that I was going to go, and go through INDOC with, and they ended up going on becoming Raiders. And I talked to them all the time. And, one of the things they told me is, they said, as far as like the physical aspect of it, it's not really that much different from the infantry. It's everything else, the intellect, the thinking, the critical thinking that you have to go through, learning a different language, learning different, explosives and breach technicalities, things like that. So I have a lot of respect, tremendous respect for the SF guys that are out there. And, as an infantry guy, it's probably the only person in the military that we look at and we're like, all right, those guys are shit hot.
I think it's probably also aviators, because I don't think of anyone who's gone through Ranger School and you're you're falling asleep while walking because you're so tired, and you're sweating, you're smelling ammonium off your body because you're sweating your muscle, and you just look up and see Blackhawks flying overhead, and you're like, man, that just seems like a much better job. Why didn't I do that? I don't think that hasn't gone through any grunt's mind at some point in time.
We have a friend over on Badlands that does a show over there, Lieutenant General Steve Quast, and he flew F-15s in the Air Force. And we interviewed him a few months back, and that was one of the things I told him. I was like, as a grunt, we used to sit there and watch you guys flying around up there. And I asked him, I said, did you guys have AC up there? Because in Afghanistan, that's what I was doing. I was looking at you saying, man, I wish I had AC. I wish I, got to fly around and blow shit up and then go back and sleep on a warm cot and have a hot meal. So yeah, we are envious of them. So John, let's get back to, you go through all your special forces. What was the timeline on that?
Yeah. So I I graduated the Q course, 2019. And then in 2020, after finishing up language and military free fall, that's when I came to Florida. That's when I came to 7th Special Forces Group. So during all the COVID madness and craziness. Yeah.
And so what did that look like as somebody, just getting out of school and, becoming a team guy and, moving on? What did that look like as somebody with the jab and everything? What was the atmosphere at that time?
So 2020, there was just too much caution. And I think anyone who's been in the military realizes that oftentimes there's an overreaction in order to prevent something from happening. So we can be overly cautious with safety measures. Sometimes we feel as though if we do something, it's better than not doing anything, although often it's better to not do anything. So we were having long periods of quarantine, arrived to 7th Group, 2 weeks of quarantine, go to another trip 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after quarantine. We're encouraged to wear a mask, things of that nature. So I got there in 2020, and my unit was deployed at the time. So it was the last battalion to suffer casualties before the withdrawal. So they got back in August of 2020. I took the team in September of 2020, and it was just very much a cautious kind of thing. As the COVID shot was coming out, that's when things got a little bit crazier. And I was just very relaxed with my team. We spoke very openly with each other. We all knew the shot was coming out. We all knew that, hey, this is pretty experimental, what they're doing with this. We weren't sure whether we wanted to get it. We didn't know whether Trump was going to win or Biden was going to win. We just were like, hey, why do we need this? Most of us have already had COVID at some point in time. So when the shot was out, that's when the pressure really ramped up, even before the mandate. I think that the pressure was greater for me and my unit before the mandate came out than after, because that's when they were trying to get people to volunteer, and they were using whatever kind of means they could to incentivize you to get it. So at first, telling officers or telling people, hey, you can volunteer, you can sign up. I looked at the list, and I was the only officer in my company to not sign up, and you do not want to stand out.
Right.
Like, yeah. So a company of maybe 10 officers, it just doesn't help. And you're being rated against your peers. And that's a very easy distinguisher. And the military made that your metric of success for how good of a leader you were, how vaccinated your detachment, your unit was. So it turned into a lot of harassment. I just told my guys, basically, as your team leader, I'm not going to punish or reward you based on whether you get the shot. I personally don't want to get it, and we might get some shit for it, but that's okay. And boy, did the shit come. Yeah.
So just real quick, how many guys at this point are on your in your team?
I think we had like 10 or 11. We were always missing 1 or 2 jobs. So a normal detachment has 12 individuals, an officer or warrant officer, and 10 enlisted. So at some times we might have had 1 comm sergeant, or we didn't have 1 intel sergeant, something like that. Yeah.
And so these guys, I would imagine, are all pretty much, sergeant and above.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have pretty senior folks. So my team sergeant was a sergeant first class at the time, but a very senior sergeant first class. And then, yeah, mostly sergeant first classes, staff sergeant. I don't think I ever had a sergeant. I didn't really get any new guys coming from the Q course enlisted wise to my team. So I had guys who'd been pretty well experienced and versed. Yeah.
And so you're like, I'm just trying to get the atmosphere here. Do they treat you like an FNG, like the new guy, or are you getting messed with? Or
no, they were all good. They were all respectful. I mean, it's a much more relaxed atmosphere there, right? So it's not like a Ranger regiment. It's not like your normal infantry platoon where you have guys who graduated high school, probably went to the military to avoid whatever life expectations they had or something like that, right? I mean, if you're just looking at a normal infantry unit, I don't know how it's possible. You can PT 5 times a week and you'll have guys still failing the PT test. Every weekend you get a call for some dumb thing, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, somebody getting, Deweys, people getting arrested for stuff, coming in 20% loan on a car, married a stripper. I mean, it's just, you just take the gambit. I had one time when one guy was shooting paintballs at a university. I'm like, why would you shoot paintball at students at a university? You have that stuff. You have the infidelity stuff where sometimes the spouses will claim it. And it's like, the spouse is doing it too, but because they're in the military, they get charged with it. So I think we all know how much of a babysitting job it can be as an infantry officer. But as a Green Beret, and I went in there kind of knowing like, hey, these guys all have more experience than me. Right. My job is to understand commander's intent, to pass that on to them, to make sure the job is getting done, to make sure nothing terrible happens, to learn as much as I can so that when I'm a company commander, I can best employ the detachments that I can. Certainly leading while I'm there, using the planning and that training experience I have, and whatever strengths. So maybe my Spanish was better than the majority of the gringos there, right? So I could assist there, depending on how many Hispanics you have on your team. But no, absolutely love the mission, love the team, the dudes, and we just treat each other with respect. And, it was, I think with soft guys, you can kind of characterize them as not being conservative, being more conservative, but more in a libertarian manner. They don't get as bent out of shape about the social issues, but they don't want the government to mess with them. So good times. Yeah.
Okay. So when you, kind of give your guys the opportunity to object if they so choose, which everybody should have that right, especially with an experimental jab, you get probably quite a bit of respect from those guys. They look at you and this is a leader giving us, not just telling us get in line and obey orders, but if you have a conscientious objection to this, to take that out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of them didn't end up getting it until the mandate actually came out. So I had the least vaccinated detachment in all of 7th Special Forces Group. I mean, there's some guys who fake the funk for sure. And that was an easy thing. If you wanted to get the shot, go to a CVS, or when the shots were available at the battalion level, your SF homie is going to hook you up if you don't want to get it. But as far as like legitimately not getting it and not lying about getting it, no one really got the shot on the team except for like onesies or twosies. We had a Delta come to the team and he got it a week after. So that's your medic. But that was just, hey, he's kind of a newer guy coming in and he wanted to get it. So good on him if he wanted to get it. Another comms guy decided to get it. But the pressure basically looked like my team sergeant getting harassed pretty regularly by the sergeant major, being brought in the office, long discussions. He got in my face at one point in time telling me I'd lose my career, look bad, can't recover from it. He'd punish guys by sending them to the schoolhouse where they'd have to teach or brag or off the team, saying if your team loses a mission, I'm going to punish you guys. That's not a threat. That's a promise. Things of that nature. And then longer quarantine time for the unvaccinated having to wear masks. But the big pressure really came down when we had a mission on the line. And First Special Forces Command made it a requirement where you needed the shot in order to deploy. So I was out in military freefall training with my team, just told the guys, hey, this is what's a requirement. I don't want to get it. Team sergeant don't want to get it. You guys want to get it, you can. And most guys, except for one, were like, yeah, we're not going to get it. That's fine. We're going to wait till it's mandatory. Their concern was that they knew this was emergency use authorized. And therefore, if they were injured by it, they voluntarily took it. Because it wasn't mandatory. So if they got messed up, medically injured, how are they going to take care of their families? That was their main concern. Mine was more of a religious objection with use of the aborted fetal cells. And also another definition for sin is an act against reason. And if you're just going to go against reason and get something that is not going to help you, but is going to harm you, that you can clearly see is a political tool in order to root out conservatives, in order to have more government control, you have that duty and obligation in your conscience to object to it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That nothing from that made any sense whatsoever. 99.9% survival rate. And, it goes even higher when you get into people that were in the physical shape that you guys were in, all that stuff. It never made sense to me at all.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So what kind of, I know you had your objections, obviously. and you kind of outlined some of the retaliation that was taken against you. But I've heard you speak in the past before. But what other things were you being kind of subjected to for your objections?
So I think one of the most on your nose ones, we were, after the mandate came out in August of 2021, we went to training in September of 2021 to the Joint Readiness Training Center. And that's a large combat training center where you have a brigade size element, thousands and thousands of soldiers in a training area at the same time. And one of their risk mitigation measures was to have the unvaccinated soldiers wear red wristbands and red tape on their uniforms and equipment, which is just completely reminiscent of Nazi Germany. I don't know how they didn't see this, but that was legitimately, and that's another one of those, we have to do something to say we're doing something to show that we're trying to make it better. What good is that going to do? You're in the middle of the woods. Like, seriously, just calm down, everybody. So my team sergeant and I were like, we're just not doing it. That's just stupid. Some guys were funny and they wore like 3 of them, like whatever, but yeah, actually, it was funny. I was talking to we were working with another platoon from the 101st, and they kind of knew our story. They were acting as the guerrilla force, and they were joking that they were going to get their wristbands that said vaccinated, and they were going to go down in the town and hit on like liberal women or something like that. But I thought that was pretty good.
I don't know if you've ever flown out of a Marine Corps base, a Marine Air Station, but the Marines that work the flight line, they all have this little piece of red tape on their cover, and then like on their patch on their blouse they have a piece of red tape. And when I was a boot before we deployed the first time, we're all loading our sea bags and everything up, and I go and I ask my squad leader, I go, hey, what do what do the red tapes mean? And like, I guess the running joke is that they're Marines that have AIDS. and so we're like,
military humor is the best, isn't it?
It is
like, actually, during that training event, the other detachment actually made gold stars for our team. And it's like, okay, you just have to laugh at the situation. You're going to cry.
Yeah, it's downright hilarious. We were treating them like they were lepers from that point on.
That's
We're
awesome.
like,
That's hilarious. Yeah,
I don't want this person anywhere near me, and then we find out what it actually means.
That's hilarious. Yeah, yeah.
So you guys, now, was all of this going on still under the EUA, or was it during the fake Cominardi?
Yeah.
crap?
So what was going on? Everything I've shared so far was before the mandate came out, except for the red tape during that training exercise. The mandate came out in August of 2021, at which point my whole team was counseled in October. Most of the guys either got the shot or they got the shot. And I put my religious exemption in, at which point in time I was shortly removed from the team because I was not deployable. So anyone who had an exemption pending, they weren't allowed to deploy. They weren't allowed to move to different duty stations. They couldn't travel for training or overseas or anything. Even if it's within state, I couldn't travel to an Army school. So that puts my career on ice. So basically what happened is my team already lost out on deployments. We were supposed to go to El Salvador, which never had a mandate, but we were removed from doing that. My team time got cut short because I wasn't allowed to deploy. And then finally, I was supposed to teach, ironically, ethics at West Point, but I couldn't move to go to grad school to get a philosophy degree. So I ended up deciding to leave the military in September 22. That was after we had a 2-star come in and talk to us at a town hall. And I think anyone who's been in the military, understand those town halls, knows it's actually not a true town hall. You're not actually supposed to ask the questions you want to ask. But at that point, I really didn't care. So I just raised my hand like, hey, sir, Captain Frankman over in 3rd Battalion. And a couple of weeks ago, the CDC changed its guidance, said that those who have been vaccinated or not, they shouldn't be treated any differently. But we have 30 of us who can't deploy, travel, move to future duty stations, and our exemptions are still pending. So are you going to drop the mandate? And when are we going to hear about our exemptions? And he basically hemmed and hawed about he doesn't want to kick anybody out, but he will if he needs to. So I was just like, well, why am I going to stick around if they're just going to kick me out for no damn reason? It's just absolutely retarded. Yeah, totally.
And so you end up leaving, and we'll get into some of the current stuff that's gone on, but the Slotkin, Mark Kelly, lawful order thing pops in the head when I think about all this, and the sheer irony and hypocrisy in that. coming out of, where you guys are, having to go through all that training and everything, and then have it all be taken away because you refuse to get something that there's zero chance whatsoever that it's going to have any ill effect on you. How did that affect you, not just personally, but mentally going through? I mean, you're talking about, you went through some of the most arduous training there is in the U.S. military, maybe in, all militaries. And you work to accomplish a certain goal, to achieve a certain, position, right?
Right.
Joining the Green Berets. And then all of a sudden that's taken away from you, and you don't even have a chance to do what the military spent good money to train you to do. I mean, it's probably close to $1 million to train, some of these JSOC guys. And
yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, it was probably one of the most stressful times of my life. That's for sure. I think some grays coming up, just very, very stressful, losing a lot of sleep. I occupied so much of my mental energy too and I was going through talking to legal assistants, figuring out what legally can I do, trying to do research, trying to help out other people in my circle who I got into contact to. A lot of us kind of bonded. I did more so after I got out. But it was very stressful. But at the same time, just being a Christian, that's the first and foremost thing in my life, being a Catholic Christian. And I prayed about it. And I've had these periods of prayer where I had to pray about, God, do you want me to be a priest? The big difficult part is, do you want me to be celibate? Right. So going through that whole experience of entering the seminary, leaving the seminary, now praying about, do you want me to take the shot or not? And it wasn't something that was totally clear for me at first. I think early on I knew I'm going to at least wait until it's mandatory. This shot, this drug, it's involved in abortion. It uses aborted fetal cells in the testing and or production. So I at least have that moral obligation to wait until it's mandatory before I say it's a grave enough matter. And as I went on and prayed about it, getting out, I had a final interview before leaving the military. It was with a full bird colonel at base. And he asked me why I was leaving. And I said, this is what happened to me with the shot mandate. What would you do? And asking him, do you think the order was legal? Do you realize it required an FDA approved shot? But he was asking me, do I think I was selfless in my service? I'm like, absolutely. I did what I thought was right. And looking back on it, I don't think there is a better thing I could have done with my military service than take that stand, that moral stand. Certainly nothing we did in Iraq or Afghanistan, because it's just very unfortunate what happened there. But we need to really reestablish that morality within the military, lest we do atrocious and awful things.
Wow, I mean, that's just so devastating. Like I didn't train anywhere near as hard as you guys did, and I if somebody had taken that away from me, I just can't. So let's go ahead.
No, I mean, God uses it for good, right? I never thought I'd get an experience, and it certainly is very providential. I mean, I know you're about to get into like what I did after, but I mean, yeah, I afterwards I went on a 8-day silent retreat, and then from there, just a lot of doors opened up.
I want to, speaking of doors opening up, I want to play this clip here. This was back in October of 2024, about a month before the election, and you had an opportunity to speak with President Trump about this, and let's play this clip here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President. I'm John Frankman. I was a Special Forces Green Beret who was forced out of the military because of the COVID-19 vaccine. So the Biden-Harris DoD COVID-19 vaccine mandate was very damaging to the military. It forced thousands of service members out, and thousands do not want to join now. The Biden-Harris DoD has the lowest recruiting in modern history, and now they're pushing more woke training. So how do you plan to repair the military from the damage that was done and hold military leaders accountable?
So I want to have them come back into the military with pay, and they've been talking about that, but it never happened. They never did what they said they were going to do. There should have never been a mandate. That should have never happened. You should have been given choice, as we say. We want choice in education, and we want a choice there too. And that should have never happened. And we've lost some of our best people in the military too. Did you leave? Did you ever take the vaccine?
I never did, sir.
So you wanted choice. Would you go back in if they were able to?
As long as there's accountability, potentially.
Yeah, now there'd be accountability, right? They can fight in the asses. We don't want to lose this guy. We want he's central casting. We want to get him back in. Yeah, we're going to take care of it. I hope you do come back, or I hope you do very well outside, to be honest. Wherever you are, I just want you to do well. But we're going to get a lot of people coming back. They should have never had the mandate. The mandate was a big mistake, and they treated people terribly, terribly. Okay? Thank you very much. Great. You look great.
So, pretty badass experience being able to sit up on stage with President Trump and ask him a question like that on one of the bigger platforms out there. So in hindsight, that was almost 2 years ago. How do you feel now?
Well, I mean, it was obviously an amazing experience. And I was very nervous. It was mind blowing for sure. Having his music come on, the national anthem, but looking back, it's kind of unfortunate, right? I don't think that the reinstatement process has been very good. We had about 8,600 people that were kicked out. We had maybe 90K-ish people who quote unquote voluntarily separated. And that's not language I'm making up. That's language that this current administration is using in the Department of War. So having about 100,000 people who leave the military are forced or coerced out, whatever word you want to use. And we just heard from Undersecretary Tata of Personnel and Readiness a couple of days ago that they only have about 150 who's been reinstated. Put that in perspective, that means for every 1,000 service members that was forced out, that left because of COVID, only 1.5 has come back in, 1.5. Why is that? The reinstatement process is overly bureaucratic. You have to go through MEPS. You have to go through the BCMR process. The promise of back pay, it only applies to those who were kicked out, the 8,600, the smaller majority. And even there, they're not given full back pay. That promise has not been fulfilled. Their back pay is subtracted from everything they made as a civilian from the day they were kicked out to the day they go back in. And furthermore, there's just been no accountability. So between not having full back pay, not having accountability, having an overly bureaucratic process, I don't know what's going on. It just seems like there's not the political willpower to get this done. And that's another reason why I'm running for Congress. I don't hear any congressmen talking about this right now. I went through this. I live in the most veteran densely populated district in the country with 5 military bases. A lot of the leaders in this movement are from here. Jordan Carr, she was down here and ran for a state house position. Casey Dixon, she was stationed here when she was going through the whole thing. So I just think we need representation. We need to be fighting for our people, for our military, because it's a weaker moral institution right now. You kicked out the people of conscience. Yep. The accountability piece, no one's been fired for this explicitly. Some of the people who are the most grievous offenders are now higher ranking individuals. I think it's the Secretary of the Air Force who's a tyrant about it. I think the CNO for the Navy was a tyrant about it. I talked to Rob Green and I was like asking him, who's a list of the generals and admirals to point out? He said, you swing a cat, you'll hit one, you'll find one. Wow. It's just atrocious.
Wow. And I firmly believe that President Trump absolutely wants to maintain that. A lot of people don't understand what you mentioned earlier, the bureaucracy that you have to go through in doing something like that. There's a lot of hurdles that you have to go through. And it's not something that President Trump can just wave a magic wand and voila, it's fixed. And now with the Iran conflict, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but with all of that going on as well, I admit this has been the military and the COVID vaccine and getting justice for those people and getting them compensated for what they went through. It has not been, he came out swinging with the J6ers, right? Immediately, just like that, J6ers pardoned and everything else. But yeah, it's been lackluster.
Yeah, I mean, he did sign his executive order very early on, but there's so many elements of difficulty. I don't think that anyone who's really, there are certainly people who are politicos and the admin who've went through it. I know some of them on the task force, but within the Pentagon and talking to some of the folks who are in the task force, it seems as though most of the military doesn't understand this was an unlawful order. Yep. They think that, Trump's making an exception because these people are conservative, so he's handing out favors. We've always gotten shots. We have to get shots no matter what. You have to understand that this order was unlawful. And you and I both know it's because there was no FDA approved drug available to service members. That's the only time you can mandate someone take a drug is if it is fully FDA approved. And even when it is, there are systems in which a person can apply for an exemption, whether it's medically, whether it's for another legal reason, whether it's religiously. And those processes were weaponized against the service members themselves.
Wow. And so many of them have suffered gravely for it. The last time that you and I got together was a couple of years ago on our Sit Rep podcast over on Badlands, and we had Caroline Stancic up there with us. And this is a woman that has gone through numerous heart attacks, all sorts. She's had strokes, she's had asthma now.
Yeah, she has a pacemaker too. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just nuts.
24, 25. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember when we interviewed her that night, and I actually linked up with her at a General Flynn event. I invited her to a General Flynn event on the west coast of Florida, and got to interview her again at that event. And I mean, just the way they treated her. And this woman was an athlete when she was in high school. She was a three-letter athlete.
Yeah,
and it's just unheard of that now all of a sudden you have asthma and because you took the jab. That's bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think of also Drew Outstanding. He's also an X, but his story I think is even more tragic. Not trying to compare, but he had Guillain-Barré syndrome and basically was paralyzed and couldn't move. And he told me when they induced the coma, and he remembers every single thing that happened to him, all the painful experiences when he was in the coma, and he'll never be fully recovered. He's such an impressive person, getting up, doing whatever workouts he can, but it's just tragic what's happened to so many people.
That is absolutely crazy. So let me see where we're going to go next. So speaking of, and we'll kind of just talk about some of the more contemporary stuff right now. We mentioned earlier the Alyssa Slotkin and Mark Kelly and the video that they put out. And, by the way, just lumping a CIA intelligence officer in with military. Not a fan of that.
They don't have enough veteran Democrat candidates or something like that. I don't know. I'll switch parties and they'll eat me up. No, just kidding. But yeah, who knows?
I prefer to think that Slotkin's just the handler there. She's the three-letter agency handling them and pushing this on. But coming out and saying that, like, how did you feel as a captain, special forces, veteran? How did you? What was your reaction to that video?
It was absolutely absurd, and just given my experience of actually not following an unlawful order and being terribly punished for it, along with tens of thousands of other service members, they don't understand their own irony. They don't understand just how absolutely reverse and crazy that they are. My thought process, and I think I said, like, look, I didn't follow an unlawful order. You need to call out the unlawful order that you're talking about. I mean, theirs was kind of pushing for sedition. That was more of their attempt. It was to try to say that Trump was in some way, shape, or form actually pushing for unlawful orders. But I think that this was also a lost opportunity for Republicans. I think that if Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and he can still do this, if he still wants to make the example of this about unlawful orders, is he can, instead of court-martialing Mark Kelly, who under a lot of free speech stuff, it's going to be a lot harder to get him, going ahead and court-martial their top flag officers who pushed this COVID shot to an extent. Going ahead and recall Mark Kelly off of retirement so that he can be court-martialed for everything he did, but let's do it specifically for COVID. That's going to give the example and teaching lesson of what is an unlawful order that you cannot be pushing. If you're a leader, you have to take responsibility. Everything that you do or you fail to do falls within your purview, right? For unit. And it is also going to just embolden your base too. So, I mean, I saw another thing where Senator Tom Cotton was asking in general, have you ever been given an unlawful order? Have you ever witnessed that? And he said, no. And I'm pissed off at Tom Cotton too. It's like, hey dog, did you forget about the COVID mandate? Do you not understand that this was unlawful too? So there's a lot of education that needs to be made throughout, I don't know, our whole government, everybody in DC, they're in their bubble and it needs to be bursted badly.
Yeah, so that specific little clip that they put out there, they start out by essentially, and it's been a while since I've seen it, but saying that this president is pitting the military against the people and trying to subvert the Constitution. Like, they went out there and said things that are fundamentally untrue. Mm-hmm. Right? The president never tried to pit the military against the people. Making these categorically false statements and then turning around. And this is the distinction that I don't think people may or may not understand. In the military, we're we're taught what to do if we have an unlawful order, right? We're trained, we receive briefs, and we receive death by PowerPoints on how to go about requesting masks, going, up the chain of command and things like that. If you believe that an order is unlawful, we don't have what we should not have is a completely separate branch of the United States government, this being the legislative branch, subverting the commander in chief in the executive branch, the civilian leader of our military, by telling troops like, hey, he's giving you unlawful orders, disobey them. That, to me, that is as seditious as it gets.
No, I think I would have been a lot happier if I had seen Republicans during the Biden admin, during the COVID mandate, come out and say, hey, this is unlawful. There's no FDA approved shot coming out. You guys can disobey. I encourage you to do so. That would be naming a specific instance of an unlawful order. I think that would have been great, because what Congress is supposed to be the civilian leadership representing the people. They have the House Armed Service Committee for a reason. It's to be that civilian overwatch of the military from the legislative perspective. And they can cut funding or they can change laws in order to help move it in the right direction, right? So what the Democrats did, just awful, because there was no specific order that they were pointing out to. It was absolutely for purposes of sedition. But I think in other instances, you could have Congress speaking out when there is a very clear order that's being violated and the executive branch isn't doing their job in enforcing it.
John, we're going to take a quick break right here and hit another sponsor. And then we'll get back into this, and loving this conversation so far. But before we move on, guys, they can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support, or what you take. We've just discussed that. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. And that's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators that you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. It's not a credit card that they can shut off. It is your wallet permanently, yours to protect your future, to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download the Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. All right. So I want to, we just kind of talked about the CIA operation, that thing.
Yeah.
What do you think so far of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth? What do you think of the job he's done so far?
I think it seems pretty solid so far. I think just the COVID reinstatement, that's obviously the issue that we're having, right? But I think when it comes to rooting out a lot of the DEI stuff, that's good. I mean, he has a monumental task. We've seen that the Pentagon, the highest level leadership, is just very liberal. I would have liked to see more leaders fired, more leaders held accountable. I think if he can really not just fire, but the rank grade determination that they were talking about for Mark Kelly, let's do that for every single flag officer for their implementation of DEI policies, for their implementation of the COVID vax mandate. But no, it seems like overall doing a generally good job.
Let me pause for 1 second and go back a step even further. What did you think about renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War, going back to the original intent?
Yeah, I didn't really get too emotionally invested in either of them. I guess we did better at Department of War, and I think it's a nice kind of rebranding thing where, hey, we really haven't been winning many wars lately. Let's try to get like a rebranding going, maybe gen up some motivation. But yeah, I didn't get too heavily invested in that. Kind of between that and the Gulf of America, I was kind of like, okay, cool.
The Gulf of, being a Floridian, the Gulf of America is an epic one, because when you say that, like in casual conversation with people, when you're like, oh yeah, we're going to go over to the Gulf of America for the weekend, like we would never say previously, we would never say we're going to the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to the Gulf. We're going to the Gulf. We're going to
right.
And I feel like we would only say it on the East Coast, because normally we go to the beach in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's so now I just say it. I say it every chance I can because
the Gulf side's so much better. I remember just spending some time in Orlando. Oh yeah, right. You actually think Atlantic side is better? Get out of here with the sand. No,
you got better beaches. You got way better beaches. We got better. I think we've got better water sports. We've got better scuba diving. I think we've got better fishing, especially offshore.
Destin.
Well, you guys got like the backwater. You guys got like some good like.
It's named the luckiest fishing town in America, I think. When you go over the bridge,
I'm going with Isla Morada for that. But
anyway, yeah,
you guys got good fishing. You guys, you're not going to go out there and catch. You're not going to rip off a bull dolphin or a screaming wahoo or something like that. But I don't know. You left coasters, man. You guys love your water over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Department of Defense versus the Department of War. Like I like the concept, right? If we're going to keep it Department of Defense, let's make it Department of Defense. Our homeland hasn't been attacked. Maybe 9/11 obviously would be the last time that we considered an attack, but prior to that, we haven't been threatened directly, whatsoever. But so let's kind of, the natural segue from there is the conflict that's going on now, and this Iran war, and a lot of us woke up February 28th and we're like, oh shit, what the heck just happened? What was your reaction to all of that?
So I was a bit cautious about, I'm kind of cautious about any kind of foreign interference or foreign, whatever we do outside of here, right? Whether we're getting into another conflict, I want to be very careful about where we use our military. By no means pacifist at all, but want to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. The good that's going to come out of it outweighs the bad that is anticipated and the bad that could be unanticipated in the future. I thought, especially with the bombing of the Iran nuclear sites in June, what we were told then is that the nuclear sites were destroyed, that it was going to take decades in order to rebuild them. So I was a little bit shocked when we were massing naval forces out in Iran. It's like, well, didn't we just blow up the nuclear site? So I did not think that we should have gone in and struck this most recent time, this last month. And then with the resignation of Joe Kent, I thought, okay, if someone within the administration is saying this too, kind of confirming, because when we went back the last time, there's stuff I don't know. There's stuff you don't know. There's so many levels of top secret information that you have to give a little bit of grace, but I kind of thought, hey, why are we doing this? This seems like another kind of Middle Eastern conflict that we don't necessarily need to be in. We have so many problems at home. I'm just so much more concerned about a lot of the problems we have at home, especially getting the budget down, getting the deficit, getting affordability taken care of different infrastructure issues such as that, mass deportations of the illegal immigrants here. So obviously, Iran is not our friend. They attack us through their proxies all the time. They shoot missiles at our bases out throughout the Middle East. And I was in contact with some Green Berets who were in Syria and around the area, who, when they were getting struck, they couldn't respond unless it was just the gravest threat, right? And they were basically put out there to be bait in some way, shape, or form. Wow. I think in that sense, you absolutely give a commensurate response. If they shoot a missile at you, you shoot 10 back. But that's kind of that defensive, we're in that area thing. I just don't think that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States last month when we attacked them. And for that reason, I don't think we should be over there right now.
Yeah, I'm broadly with you. Again, President Trump is probably the only commander in chief during my lifetime that I would give the benefit of the doubt to, because he's been so staunchly anti-war, anti-forever wars. He's been a denouncer of the Iraq and Afghanistan engagements. And, when I woke up on February 28th and saw those reports that, we had started an operation there, like the first thing that popped into my head was, did Israel jump the gun on this? Did Israel attack first? And, when we come out and say we had to strike because it was a preemptive strike, well, you know as well as I do, if Israel hits unilaterally without U.S. involvement, we're automatically implicated in that. We are automatically going to be retaliated against. And so my initial reaction was Israel jumped the gun. We had to, whatever plan was in place or whatever plan was being considered, we had to immediately effectuate that plan, actuate that plan. And we got thrown into this. And so when Rubio comes out and says that, Israel was going in and we had to do this, and then, President Trump walks it back and says, no, if anything, I forced their hand. I kind of feel like we're kind of dealing with a psyop in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Rubio just said it off the cuff, and kind of sometimes your first response is the most honest response. And it sounded like that Israel was going to do something, so we had to do something as well. I don't know. And if it's in America's interest, I'm fine doing different things, and even if it benefits Israel. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not pro-Israel. I mean, they're an ally when it works out for us, but we need to be working on America's interests first, putting America first. So if it makes sense for us to do it, we should do it. If it doesn't make sense for us to do it, we shouldn't do it. And as it benefits other countries, great. But yeah, that's definitely a big concern hearing that from Rubio. We don't want our foreign policy dictated by any other country, except to the extent that it affects us as Americans.
Yeah, I outlined the whole thing. There was more to it than just, I think they jumped the gun, because Witkoff and Kushner had been engaged with the foreign minister in Iran just days before that, a day and a half before that. They had another scheduled meeting for the Monday following. So it just didn't feel like this is Trump, right?
Yeah. And now we're seeing, where were those recent strikes? Lebanon, that Israel is striking Lebanon. And that was what part of the ceasefire was, to not strike the area, but Israel goes and strikes them. So if it's a joint operation, we're doing the heavy lifting. I think they need to be following our lead. They need to be doing what we tell them to do. And my thought is, we're $39 trillion in debt. We shouldn't be giving any more money, weapons, anything, period, et cetera, to any other foreign country right now. To put it in perspective, that means every man, woman, and child would have to pay $110,000 to balance the budget, probably more now. So if your household of 5 is $500,000 in debt, that's not time to be giving money to other neighbors down the street. That's time to be saving your own stuff and taking care of home. So, yeah.
And going back to Joe Kent, and when Joe Kent came out and said that he felt the same way that they forced our hand in this, and then of course we get the response from President Trump. And what does Israel do the very next day? I believe the very next day they hit the South Pars gas field, and Trump comes out and puts out a Truth Social post. He's like, Israel did that on their own. We did not know that was going to happen. We did not know that it's very bad. Don't do it again. And that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Trump's frustration with Israel when he said, they don't know what the F they're doing. It's just unfortunate. And you see a lot of people right now who are concerned about foreign influence in our politics. One of the questions I get the most on every social media platform is, I'm going to take AIPAC money. And I'm not going to take AIPAC money. It's not because I'm against Israel. It's not because I'm pro-Israel. It's just because our politicians shouldn't be influenced by any other country when they're making decisions. They shouldn't be receiving money from any entity that supports a foreign nation, right? So young people are just concerned about that, and they're seeing how much money is being put in, and how it seems like a lot of what America does is in order to benefit Israel, oftentimes over what benefits the United States. That may or may not be true, right? But let's at least get rid of any appearance of that. Let's at least clean up the money that politicians are getting right now, that it's not from special interest groups, and especially not special interest groups that are outside the United States.
Amen. And again, that's another thing that's just, the needle is kind of shifting on that. This is not a conversation that you could have had 8 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
This would have been kind of the taboo. You don't want to talk about, IPAC funding. You don't want to talk about, the wars over in that region and who's responsible for them and all that. And again, President Trump has an incredible track record on this. So I am giving him the benefit of the doubt, and the operation thus far, granted, it is costing us a lot of money. I mean, 13 troops have been killed thus far. Most of them, training accidents, or I think 6 of them, or was it 7 that were training accident?
I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
I think it was 7 when the 2 KC-130s.
When they hit.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's absolutely tragic, but, in comparison to how we would have expected a war with Iran to go, it's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, until you're putting troops on the ground in there, that's obviously where the mass casualties are going to be taking place. We hope that we have the air superiority, but I think with drone technology, the battlefield is shifting so rapidly, just absolutely so rapidly. And that's where potentially with the Strait of Hormuz, we're seeing difficulty where, yeah, you can't just necessarily take out a bunch of ships. You can't just take out a bunch of missile sites. You can launch drones from everywhere. And these drones can cost a thousandth of the cost of whatever equipment they're attacking and destroying. So this is really our new thing that, you know, I dealt with a little bit, but is definitely coming up and we need to adjust fire for.
Yeah, the drones to us were predators and reapers flying over.
Right. Yeah, and they like often crash. Oh, I gotta go get it. And now it's just so, you know, using AI to move it around and just yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's actually a good question. What do you think the future of warfare is going to look like? I mean, obviously there's this push towards robotics, towards drones, artificial intelligence. Where do you think war is going to go in 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, you're always going to have the human element, right? And gosh, that's such a good question. So yeah, I think the less you can, you're going to try to go for what's more efficient, what you can mass produce for cheaper in order to influence, and what's going to put less people at harm. So I could see drones, AI, operating things going much further. I think that information operations with artificial intelligence, making different videos and things like that. And when we learn about how do we influence people, there's diplomacy, information, military, economy. Those are the different 4 elements and dynamics of how you kind of insert your power. And potentially, and I think, you know, both China and America might be at odds on our different interests, what we want to do, but we have enough sense to know that an all-out total war is going to lead to a lot of destruction and be more risky than either of us want to get into right now, right? So I think a lot of the limited engagements, using a lot of special operations people to go into places, blend in, and I don't know, plant viruses, things like that. So it's going to be very interesting, and got to keep reading different sci-fi books to figure it out.
Right, like we're on the precipice of like Terminator and iRobot.
Yeah, I think Ukraine said that they took out a Russian squad without using any personnel whatsoever. And I mean, I could believe it, but we just need to make sure that we're getting that kind of technology and manufacturing here as rapidly as possible. Just be able to keep up and be able to deter any of those threats for our adversaries.
Wow. So did Ukraine claim that like there's no human input? Like they
Well, I think it was human input, but I just don't think that any people were there. So maybe I'll have to look into the story more, right? This is just, you know, reading whatever, and who knows how true, but just that it's developing pretty rapidly, I think.
Well, because one of the things I did see, and again, I'm just, this is to introduce the idea, not necessarily as a matter of fact, but I saw a video that it could look like it might have been AI of Zelensky standing in front of a bunch of like drones in the background. The background definitely looked CGI. Yeah. But whether or not he was real, but he was saying, you know, we're at the point now where we have drones that can do just about every single aspect of the battlefield. Yeah. And it can save tens of thousands of lives. And this is something my co-host Alpha, we had a discussion about this. And when we get to the point where you're able to use robotics to, you know, supplement humans and replace humans, ultimately, that is great for humanity, but it is terrible for war, because now what's going to happen is whoever has the most money, whoever can throw the most money at it, and there is no human regard for life in there anymore. And so it's just like, we'll throw all the money, just keep throwing the money.
At the same time, you'll always need that human aspect, because we'll eventually figure out whatever electromagnetic pulse it is that takes out all technology. And then you're having to use your map and compass again, right? You're having to communicate. You're gonna have to throw up your whatever antenna and tree. And so you have to be prepared for all of it. And, you know, very exciting times for sure. To just be in the military, to be adjusting. And I work out at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Germany. So I go out there and I help out as a tactical analysis feedback facility analyst. And I'm looking at what the soft guys are doing, how they're adapting. And I mean, the drone swarms out there, we get practice for it because it's just an element that's taken place. So definitely having to adapt right now and be as prepared as we can.
Incredible, man. It's going to be a whole new world in the next 5 years. It's going to be unrecognizable. Like if you could go to sleep right now and wake up in 5 years, you'd be like, how many years has it been? Has it been 100, a century? What did you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just said, we'll see. Yeah, we'll definitely see.
What did you think of the operation in Venezuela, and what do you think so far how the results have turned out in that well, it's not really a conflict, in that capturing?
Yeah, it was pretty quick, right? I was confused about it because at first it was drug boats, and then it was like and then it was capturing an oil rig, and then it was taking out the president. And I can understand that being kind of the political messaging that you're using in order to kind of turn up the heat and let the frog boil in order to kind of fix that situation. So I have, it's a lot easier for me to justify and get behind the taking out in Venezuela, right, of capturing Maduro, because this is our backyard and we have a lot of Chinese influence in the area. When I was preparing for different missions in Central South America, we were aware of China trying to come in with their Silk Road initiative, and they're willing to spend billions and billions of dollars to put in infrastructure to bankrupt different countries so that they are basically debt slaves to them. And that gives them access placement, Huawei, their internet service. So I think from that kind of standpoint, and with the idea that this is a place where a missile, it could be our next Cuba, right? So I can understand that to a better extent. And I'm happy. I was nervous when we were told that we were going to be running the country. It doesn't seem like that's the case as much now. And it didn't seem like it was much of a regime change, just let's let another person kind of run it. Now they're a little scared, right? Hopefully we can get it kind of ordered and just focus a lot more on ourselves. That's always kind of, hey, America first, let's take care of what's within our country. And the two aren't mutually exclusive, but if you're putting a lot of manpower, energy, mental energy in one, I just don't want it to be the detriment of the other.
Yeah, what you brought up about it's not really a regime change. It's just kind of the next person up, and Delcy Rodriguez, taking the reins from Maduro after he got captured and brought back here. President Trump comes out and they bring up, what about Maria Corina Machado? And it's like, I don't think so. She hasn't been there for a long enough. And I still think, and going back to his first term and everything that he went through and the operations that were run against him, I still think that he knows what's going on over there. He knows the background of Machado and Sumate and USAID and National Endowment and all of the infiltration that we've had in that country, and I still, to this day, a lot of the hardship that Venezuela went through was not just because of Maduro, but it was because of sanctions that Western democracies, what the Western world put on that country. And, to see them now realigning with the United States in a way that they can be prosperous and we can be prosperous, I think that's one of the greatest geopolitical accomplishments in the Western hemisphere in quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, we'll keep seeing how it plays out, but hopefully they can get back to the same oil production, get some of the more freedoms that they have or had beforehand. Actual legit elections, not just the dictator elections, right? 80-90%, boom, good to go. So yeah, we'll keep on monitoring for sure.
That's awesome. So with the last couple of minutes here, John, you're running for Florida 1, which is Matt Gaetz's former seat. It was one of my heartbreaking moments when Matt Gaetz had to drop out of the Attorney General, nomination and drop that. I was so excited about that. But tell us a little bit about your platform and what you hope to accomplish if you win.
Yeah, I mean, it's Florida's first congressional district. It goes from Pensacola out to Freeport, the furthest northwest part of Florida. And it's the most conservative district within the state. It's the most veteran densely district in the country, and with 5 major military bases. And I want to prioritize military and veterans, period. End of story. We don't have a VA hospital here. That's something I'm going to fight to get. We serve around 30,000 at the Pensacola Clinic, around 30,000 at the Eglin Clinic, but the nearest VA hospital is in Biloxi, and they serve only 20,000. So the need is there. Congressman Jimmy Patronis has not gotten that. He only put out a letter recently saying we need to have a survey in order to figure out if we need this, and has just not prioritized his military. He didn't have a veteran on his staff up until a month or two ago, and only because I'm primarying him right now. Started doing like a whole he started doing a veteran spotlight series. If you look at his social media before I entered the race and then after, just totally different. So trying to win that over And it's just little details that show it's not a priority to him. He went to honor a Medal of Honor recipient and forgot to mention he received the Medal of Honor, right? Those are just big things. So taking care of our military veterans, making sure the Gulf Coast range, we keep that, maintain that where there's not oil rigs so that we can continue to do the bombing testing site that keeps the military around in the area. Getting accountability for COVID, obviously. I want to make accountability great again. Another distinction between Jimmy Patronis, who's in office, and myself is that I think accountability matters. He was asked about the Epstein files, and he said he wants to move on past the files. He said, I quote, "There's no more work to be done on those files." I think that's absurd.
Let's play that clip.
Yeah, go for it. Sure.
Want to move on?
Yes, sir. So, lifelong Republican, I'm going to be Trump all 3 elections. Now, on that note, one of the biggest reasons I voted for Trump was the Freedom Law. And right now, with the way that things are going with the Epstein files.
Can I be honest with y'all of the Epstein files? So then ultimately, me included, we all voted to release every single one of them. Now, here's the part that nobody really knew is the child pornography, the gross, heinous acts that were in there. There's all these things now that are starting to come to light. There were those documents that now you can't prosecute a dead pedophile over. So this was, every document is out there. I have no desire to see the smut that's in those documents. But I really want to move on away from something that I feel like is a dark, gross chapter of America where a dead pedophile was controlling the agenda of the United States of America. I want to go to work. And I feel like there's no more work to be done on those documents.
But at the same time, particularly for the victims, and I worked as a military sexual trauma counselor. So I
don't want to re-traumatize those victims, put their names out of the public domain either.
their names don't have to be out there, but accountability is something that is so important. And if we know that there are people who are perpetrators who have harmed children, we need accountability.
Yeah, well, it is all out there for the full world to go investigate. So nothing, there's nothing, to my knowledge,
Saying, hey, this was dark, and the people that were engaged in this behavior are going to be held accountable because we have a higher standard.
and I give there's me. The trauma that I deal with has been more on the side of people that have been first responders dealing with PTSD. And so I get very sensitive about re-traumatizing somebody by open wounds. I just want to go to work. And every day that we deal with this issue, I'm afraid we're just going to get focused on trying to save our country. They're out there. People want to read them, they can read them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's every time I see it, it's just hard to watch. It's just absolutely ridiculous. What's more important than getting accountability for people who sexually assaulted children underage and have not been prosecuted up into this point because they're elites, because they have money, are powerful? And he even said someone who controlled the agenda of the United States of America. Well, if you admit that they control the agenda of the United States of America, it's probably really important to figure out who was influencing him, who worked with him. Why haven't we gone to the ranch and done investigations there? Who did they traffic children to? It's not in the video, but one of his staffers brought up, the statute of limitations. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's not the case. And even if it was, let's get Congress to change it and hold these people accountable. So I think that absolutely matters. And we haven't had accountability these last couple of years at all. I mean, look at how many people Biden had arrested, and look at the weaponization of the government that happened during the Biden administration against conservatives. We haven't had accountability for COVID. We both know General Flynn, and there was no accountability for what happened to him in 2016. There's none for the January 6ers who were terribly, terribly mistreated, put in prison, not given any of their constitutional rights as Americans. There hasn't been for the auto pen and for Epstein. And I'm sorry, but it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm a little ashamed that Mike Johnson didn't put this to a vote immediately, and that there weren't more Republicans that would have signed the discharge petition. I would have signed that discharge petition with Massey and the other 3 Republican women just immediately, because I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you harm children, you need to go to jail. It's just awful.
What did you think of FLOTUS coming out last week and saying, like, I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. He did not introduce me to my husband, but for the victims, I would encourage you to come, and Congress to bring them before Congress under oath and let them tell their stories. And then kind of a strange reaction is the victims kind of said, well, we've already told our stories, and that, to me, that didn't sit right with me.
That the victims said they had already told their stories, or that Melania came out?
that Congress is kind of reluctant to do that. And, you know,
Yeah.
there is, I think there is a lot of weaponization of the Epstein files, right? The Democrats are using it to weaponize. Now, I think there's people who genuinely care about getting justice for these victims and finding the people that were involved in this and holding them to account. But so much of this is just weaponization, right? Eric Swalwell and the files, you know, the stuff we're finding out about him, they've known about for years, and they never mention any of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the 300 something or vote or 400 something vote. What was it? Maybe 360 to 67 or something like that.
Yeah, 357. The one to hold accountable Congress for sexual conduct.
Right. It was House Resolution 1100, I think, and it was to release the reports of sexual abuse, sexual misconduct reports against members of Congress. That's another one that Jimmy Patronis voted to cover up, to put back at the ethics committee. So I just don't, I think he just thinks he has this in a bag to such an extent that he's just making these bad votes. He's saying this stupid stuff, and he thinks that whatever endorsement or money he has is just going to save him. It's just absolutely absurd. But there's a huge problem in Congress. If you want to see that there's a swamp, look at either these people are covering up for themselves or they're covering up for other members that they think are dirty. Now, I understand that there might be false accusations that happen and reports of that. Let's work those things out, right? But I can't imagine that the vast majority of them are, it's like, hey, we have 100 cases of people who are legitimately assaulting, and we have 10 folks who it's probably, you know, I mean, I don't know what the calculus is, but we just need it cleaned up. And if we can't trust Congress to hold themselves accountable, and they're at that highest level to do so, we just need a clean house. I think that everybody who goes out and votes in a primary, unless you know that your dude's solid, just go for the challenger. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, election integrity is my big thing. And so I don't have, you know, I'm very much not in agreement with how our elections are currently run, to put it politely. But yeah, primaries are the big key, because the who they want to win is going to be the one that they are going to put all their power behind. Right. And they, you know, kind of hedge their bets in the general election. So we really need to focus on the primaries and who the people that we are electing. Because, you know, in Florida 1, whoever's the conservative is more likely than not going to win. It would be, you know.
Although this last time, Petronis lost this game of county, and that hadn't happened until 1992. So, like, it might actually not happen. And the Democrat, she released her campaign video, which is absolutely hilarious. It's actually just her trolling him for not living in the district. Which I think is so funny. It's like, welcome to District 1. I'm going to give you a tour since you don't actually live here. I just thought it was hilarious. So, I mean, I think there actually is that legitimate possibility, especially given how things are trending on the poly market. You know, hopefully, please God, that's not the case. But it seems like Democrats are looking to gain a number of seats, House, potentially Senate. So even though it hasn't happened here for a very, very long time, I think there's a bigger danger that we lose the seat in the Republican House if Jimmy Patronis is the Republican candidate and not myself.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining. Where can folks go to read more about your platform, to donate if they so wish?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is frankmanforflorida.com. I mean, this is a grassroots campaign. We're going against the establishment. They have way more money than I do. So even if you just donate $20, $10, everything helps. So you can go there. We got a shop. You want to rock shirts, hats, yard signs, etc. You can go there. My social media, I'm on X, John Frankman FL, and then Instagram and Facebook, same thing. But please keep me in your prayers, and very grateful for whatever support your audience is willing to offer.
All right, Captain Frankman, thank you so much for standing in the gap, for standing up for what you believe, and carrying on your fight, carrying on your service into, you know, the political sphere. I know it's not a place where us grunts and vets want to, you know, hang out, but if we don't do it, then who, right?
Well, I think of it as a Robin Sage scenario. Robin Sage, you have the most ridiculous actors ever who are just like pretending to be the area commander who has a temper, or the guerrilla chief who, you know, likes to, who just is totally corrupt. But I think the characters in politics are just more ridiculous. And you just have to navigate it, get the 51-51 scenario. But no, it's a dirty place, but I think that's where God's calling me.
Well, President Trump called you central casting. He said, this guy's central casting. Love it. Love it. Yeah, John, thanks so much for joining me, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Captain John Frankman. Check out Frankman for Florida. Let me make sure I got that right. Frankman for Florida. I'm going to put it up on a tab on the bottom. Let me make sure I got it. Oh. Hold on. Let me bring John back up here real quick. John, going to bring you back up.
Yep.
Say that website again. I think I.
Oops, I didn't type it right. Frankmanforflorida.com. So I think you got it in the chat there, right?
Let's see. No, it might not let you put a link in there. I want to make sure that we get this. Is it the number 4?
No, it's FOR. Yeah, and it's all spelled out Florida.
And it's .com? I'm getting like a spam block. Let me show you because this could be some interference right here. Hold on. Let me pull this up.
No, I just got it.
That's what I'm getting.
Huh.
Frankmanforflorida.com. Yeah. What the heck? Let me see if it's working on my other browser. They're spamming you, bro, or they're censoring you, brother.
Uh-oh. Listening in on the interview, knowing we're making some waves. Said the magic words. We said Epstein, COVID, Israel. Yeah, we're blocked.
Wow, that's really weird. It's spam blocking your website.
What? That's odd. That's the WinRed. I mean, that's great too. If you want to donate, sure.
Not a huge fan of WinRed.
I understand. Just use the fake number, or if you want to write a check, just DM me. I'll tell you where to send it.
Oh man. All right. Well, hopefully we can figure that out. But I'll for sure share it out on X and all that. So again, John, thanks so much for joining me, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Brian.
All right, take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for so much for tuning in on the special Wednesday night interview. I was very much looking forward to that. And check it out, frankmanforflorida.com. If you search Frankman for Florida, hyphenated or spaced out, not hyphenated, on Google or whatever, it'll pop up there. So you guys can check that out as well. And we need more of these grassroots, man. We got to push back against these establishment candidates, and midterms are going to be lit, guys. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Smash that thumbs up on the way out. I will see you guys tomorrow morning on Badlands Daily at 10 a.m. Check out all the sponsors down below. I'll try and get I'll get John's link down there as well. Oh, Mags put it in there. Did it work? No, Mags, it did not work. Now it's telling me the site can't be reached. It was reset. That is strange. All right, guys, I'll get the link down below. Thank you all so much, and stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the deep state mofos pay for this.